All right, I think you should be ready to start. Do you see a live or a YouTube live up top?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Yep.
Good evening, all. I'm John Campbell, 29 Spruce Hill Drive. And tonight, this is the Open Space Committee meeting. And this open meeting is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law March 29, 2023. All members of the Open Space Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The act allows the Open Space Committee to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. I'll take a roll call of members present. Please answer in the affirmative. Brian Belfer.
Present.
Leslie Harrison.
Present.
Paul Cacciatore.
Present.
Ashley Davies.
Here.
And John Campbell. That makes 5, so we have a quorum. Also, staff present is Vinnie McNally.
Yes.
Hi, Vinnie. Okay, thanks everybody. Thanks for your patience waiting for me to get here. Nothing to report from the select board meeting. I was well received. No serious questions. Our first agenda item is consideration of minutes from January 29. I had some edits that I thought were appropriate in the description of the first section on 432 Whitney. I just, in reading it, it looked like it was a bit vague and the sentences didn't quite work. So I sent that to Vinnie late, and I'm not sure if everybody had it, but I'll read it here real quickly.
I sent it off to the members, so at about 5:30.
Very good, thank you. So the change I recommended is in the 6th sentence, and currently it reads, the town must commit to purchasing the property for CPA or open space purposes. And that didn't make sense. I don't believe we said it that way. So I think what can express properly what we were saying is the town must commit to purchase the property for open space or affordable housing purchases in order to use CPA funds. And then later down in that section, sentence 9, currently says, he explained the benefits of proceeding, blah, blah, blah. And the OSC earlier this year applied for $350,000 to go to the conservation fund. I'm sorry, $350,000 to bring the available funds set aside for open space up to 1 million. So I changed that to say applied for $350,000 to go to the conservation fund to bring available funds set aside for open space purchase up to 1 million. That's all I had. If anybody sees it differently, please let me know. Anything else to the minutes? Hearing none. Anyone want to vote to approve?
I move to approve the minutes from last meeting as posted.
Thank you, Brian. For a second. Is there a second?
I need to abstain because I wasn't here. I mean, I can second the motion. I just can't vote.
Same.
That's interesting. So I must second, I guess. I'm not sure that's legal, but we'll take your second, Leslie. And but you can't vote. That's a little weird, but whatever. I don't think it. So only
we have
two of us can vote.
John, we can initiate the rule of necessity and just get it voted that way. That
okay.
They weren't here, they reviewed it, and it was reasonable, so we should be okay.
Must be the deadbeat clause or something.
Yeah, I don't know what to call it. That's kind of ironic.
Infrequent visitors.
Very well. So nonetheless, we'll take the vote. and I'll ask each to comment either yes, no, or abstain. Brian,
Yes.
John, yes. Leslie,
Abstain.
Ashley,
Abstain.
Paul.
Abstain.
I knew you were going to say that. Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you. So next up is the discussion of the 432 Whitney. And I have a few updates to share with the committee if you had not heard them already. First of all, the warrant has the CPC approved this to go forward. The warrant has been written. The warrant shows that we will purchase it for 1.7 million. And to get there, it will consist of approximately 664,000 from the conservation fund, which this committee agreed to approve and vote for. 817,000 from the unreserved fund of CPA, which is those funds not yet into any of the core categories, and 218,000 from new revenue coming in for FY25, and that got us to the 1.7 million. After that vote, you may have heard that through lobbying by Lori Connors, we have the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation, the DCR, agreeing to contribute 200,000 toward the acquisition and also to hold the conservation restriction for no fee. So this is significant. It's not official, but Lori expects it to be, and that will replenish funds either to the unreserved account or to the conservation fund. That question is yet to be determined. I think, you know, this committee might say, hey, if there's a choice, put it back in the conservation fund. So I would lobby for that. Any comment or agreement on that?
Sorry, where else other than conservation fund could it potentially go back to?
It would either just go back to, usually when there's a reimbursement, so to speak, it would go back into CPA, but it would be in the unreserved fund, not necessarily in any core category or the open space reserve. But since we took all of the CPA money from the conservation fund, we could argue that it could go back into the conservation fund and use less of that money.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think we might have that purview, but Lori and I
we'll do
talked
that.
about it. And she's not certain if that's the case, but I figured we would all agree on that approach.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's good. We've got a item on the Conservation Commission agenda for the April 8th meeting. It's not a public agenda yet, but there's an item on there to discuss that. And that I think we need to get the commission to approve the appropriation. And I think part of their approval would be that if there is other money that's brought in through a grant or something else, that the conservation fund be reimbursed for whatever amount we get from another agency.
It makes good sense. Excellent. The other update is the appraisal for the land just came back. I shared it with you guys by email just after 7 p.m. And the appraisal is exactly 1.7 million. Somewhat fascinating.
Funny how that works, huh? Funny.
Mm.
Mm.
And at any rate, it certainly
Difference.
puts no pressure on making sure that we're covering that portion used for the acquisition of property by CPA, which, you know, so we have no issues there. Question came up in the presentation to the select board just a little while ago about how are we accounting for any portion to be used for affordable housing? And I stated as best I could that because a significant portion of the purchase is from the unreserved fund of CPA, and that the the appraisal more than covers that portion for which we used conservation money, which was designated for open space, then we have some flexibility in how we account for the CPA money. I think it can actually be done after town meeting vote. And at some point, we can decide, we used X for affordable housing. Just to put aside some portion of that land, which is really all that we're doing with this vote. There's nothing about the exact nature of that potential use of the land, only that the wishes of this committee, and I think the Conservation Commission as well, is that any building on the land be at the portion closest to the street and to not impact any of the potential open space, trails, scenic vistas, picnic areas, etc. So that's really all I had to say on that part. Anything else anybody wants to ask or pitch in on this 432 acquisition?
And just ask sort of a procedural question. What happens at like the town meeting with relation to this?
We present the warrant, which reads to designate those different funding sources. And I will typically present the reasons why the land is beneficial and the conservation of it is beneficial. And then the voters vote. Is there anything else you wanted to know about?
No, I just didn't I didn't know how detailed things would get at town meeting with regard to this piece of land. So I guess that was my main question was, obviously the presenting of the warrant, I understand completely. But sort of the next part, of the question and dialogue, similar to, I'm thinking back on the complex that we all voted on last year, where there were several people that, including myself, that got up and spoke in support of it, but also to give a little background on sort of what has been done prior to that to get us to that point. So I just was mainly inquiring about that, John.
Well, I think a little more to your point. In the CPC, we discussed a bit what some of the objections might be, as well as how to best present the positive case for acquiring the land. And I think the way that the CPA reserved allowed us to do it without any new borrowing, is something that I personally am going to highlight. But then bringing to bear the benefits of the land, for it's not a piece of conservation property that we really had on the radar a lot before, but once it came about and we began looking into it, there are many benefits to it, and of course, not the least of which that it does not get developed into an industrial property that could be detrimental to the residents that are pretty closely abutting. And there's always going to be some naysayers who believe that you should encourage development, and there'd be some tax revenue from that development. There's that kind of argument that we may have to be prepared for. And then I think the other area that personally I think I need to be prepared for is those that object to why we want to give $1 at all to the owner of this property. And you're welcome to bring that up. There's a lot of passion in that part of town against the property owner who happens to own the other parcel that's so offensive. So we just have to be ready for that. And I think the only counter to it is he's going to get the money one way or the other. And if he gets the money from the developer, not only does he get the money, but you have maybe another less friendly neighbor. Whereas if the town acquires it, we have control over what goes there, and the vast majority of it is conserved and for posterity.
I have that same visceral reaction, but that's the only way I can stomach it, is it's gonna happen one way or the other, so. It's the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, well put.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, I'm just kind of personally gearing up for that. It's in terms of the town meeting presentation, it's really the only one that should get any serious discussion or objection, you know. It's a lot of
Mhm.
money, but once again, the fact that we could cover it and didn't have to pull it from any other resource, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. No borrowing. Yeah. Yep. Hopefully your perfect record will stand.
I mean, one can only hope.
Thank
Okay,
you.
anything else on that agenda item?
I just have one question. I heard some noise around town that people were concerned about soil testing, or that maybe this property is like potentially polluted the way the northern section is. Was that addressed at all in the recent meetings?
Soil testing was done.
And it all
Yeah.
came back great?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Testing was done. So that, I'm glad you brought it up. It's a point I should remember to highlight, you know, because that could come up as well. People remember, you know, the senior center land, which used to be the gun range, the you know, the club, and that was a big fiasco for the town. And so, and obviously because of the owner of the property. So glad you brought that up, Ryan.
So I can assure any naysayers who are making noise that soil's all good and they don't have to be worried.
Yeah, the soil's good. I've been on it briefly before any of this happened. I just one day we were taking a long walk and we happened to enter the aqueduct through that area, looked at it a little bit, you know, and then just kind of carried on. But I've not been down on the main part of it. That some walked it. Lori Connors walked it with some other representatives. I think SVT was present and so on. And apparently, it's got quite a number of beneficial areas, scenic views, picnic areas. You know, not to mention that you could then connect up to Berlin and so on. So should be some good trails opportunity. But I guess there's a little bit of crap on the land, but it's you know, nothing substantial. I think there's like a trailer or something that would be removed. But there's a cut in for a dirt road that, you know, ultimately may become the access to the high part, you know, the highest part of the land there near the street where, when and if any development took place, that's where it would go.
So any like site cleanup would just be handled by town committees, DPW and whatnot. We wouldn't have to contract out anything.
I don't think so. I don't know if Vinny has any comment, but I imagine the purchase agreement would require, you know, removal of any real, you know, vehicles and things like that by the owner. And then beyond that, I guess our own town would take care of it.
Yeah, I've been up there a couple of times. I walked it with the owner and I walked it with the group with Laurie and the folks from DCR and Sudbury Valley trustees. So seen most of the upland, some of the wetlands. It's a lot of wetland, but it's a nice site. It's big high areas, probably 80 feet above the wetlands. A nice view out to the, which way am I going, out to the east. It does have a bulldozer in the back. It's not going anywhere because one of the tracks is off. But then there's also an RV up in the front that needs to be taken out. But generally there's not much else there that's a problem. It was Phil brought in there about, I think it's 10 years ago now, and he had some issues with the Conservation Commission, and he was proposing to use that or considering to use that as an access way and to get up to the back. And it's not good for machines to be driving on, to just sink into the old, it's loam, it's old composted farm stuff. So it's not a hazardous material. It's just not good for driving a vehicle on. So if there was a trail to be put in, it would require a little bit of work to kind of get that stable for a trail, but it's only a couple 100-foot section of the trail that would go in there. But those are the only issues that I would think might exist at the site. It also, the 21 or the soil testing was done. Everything came back to below detection levels. So that was surprisingly good news. And seems like everything can move ahead.
Very good. Anything else on this item? Well, here none. We'll move on. It's 8:07, not too bad. So our next item, landowner outreach mailings. We talked in a prior meeting, kind of caught ourselves a little bit about the fact that we were calling out some of the different properties by name anyway. And I know we had a discussion during one meeting about, making sure we were conscious of keeping things of a private nature. And so specifically, we have one parcel of land where the owners are now interested in discussing possible conservation. And Ashley and Vinny were involved in talking with the landowners. And I thought I could introduce it in that way and maybe have maybe summarize a little bit, Ashley, what transacted and how this committee can help going forward.
Yeah, so we had a meeting with three siblings who are now the trustees of a trust that owns this property. And they want to keep things quiet for now. But they, I guess, one sibling was very concerned. Push a little bit, thanks. One sibling was very concerned with conservation and having a conservation outcome, and the other two, just really want to make sure that they meet their fiduciary duty to the beneficiaries of the trust and get, the most money that they can for for the beneficiaries, which are, all of the grandchildren or their children. And so we just talked.
Which property is this? I'm sorry.
They didn't want us to say,
Oh,
but
okay,
we say
okay.
what number. I think Vinny was going to mention which number it is on the spreadsheet that we have, so that you can reference that.
Okay, thanks.
I believe it's line 15.
50, yes.
Line 15, yeah. So Leslie, you know the property well. So it is a property that, the town has been interested in, and we still are. And so we spoke to them about the process and just assured them, whatever the town did, it would be based on an appraisal and fair market value. So we discussed with them that we can, there is a house on the property and a barn, that those can be carved off, and we could have an appraiser take a look at the valuation of the backland so that we can, discuss with them an actual number for what conservation of the backland would be. And they're already talking to realtors about sale of the property. So we encourage them to talk to their realtor about sale of the property as a whole. And I think it's about 16 acres total, and then sale of the property, just the house, barn, and 3 acres. So they're going to talk to their realtor about, looking at those two options, maybe listing it in 2 different ways, or just listing it as the 3 acres. And then we're going to pursue getting an appraisal if the committee decides to go forward with that, and so that we can continue discussions with them on conservation of the back.
Ashley, if the should it come to pass that the owners want to maintain the home and the 3 acres you said in front, would the remainder be accessible from the road?
Yeah.
Is it
Yes.
landlocked?
So Vinny, I think you walked the property. There is a pond on one portion of the frontage, but it has frontage on 2 streets. One, you can certainly access it. It's a little steep, I think, in terms of getting in that way. And then another one has a pond, but it's not a significant pond was how they put it, but I'm not entirely clear on in terms of the access. So it's possible. I think there's plenty of frontage, so I think it would be accessible, but we may have to think about an access easement.
Right, there's a
that right?
possibility to get, yes, to get an easement over some upland. The pond water is not as much water as it used to be, as most everywhere else in the state. All the little water areas have been kind of grown in. So I think the pond that's there has got a bunch of protectable wetlands resources around it. So it would be tough to get a walkway around there, a trail outside the 25-foot no disturb zone that Northborough has. But I think there is some kind of distant, not right next to the house areas where you could have a pathway to get in through an easement, or as Ashley said, there's a big area where they could have access along a different street. And that might be better for some of the parking options as well.
So in terms of, do you believe the owners feel like the town pursuing an appraisal is the next step, or I should say the open space committee pursuing an appraisal?
Yeah, I think it would make good sense. The timing is not great just because of having 432 Whitney in front of us right now, but time is of the essence for them. I think they really need to move on this quickly. So I think, really deciding whether or not we can move forward today would be great, and just to get the process going. And then once we get some quotes, maybe from some appraisers, we can take an official vote. Is that right, Vinny?
Yeah.
But I think we just need
I
to get
think
the
right
ball
now, the idea was that it was going to come from the conservation fund. The financing of it would come from the conservation fund, and that's would be authorized by the Conservation Commission. So what we're looking for tonight is to find out if the Open Space Committee would recommend, just generally recommend, have John send an email over to the Conservation Commission and ask that they vote to authorize an appraisal of the property and have it funded through the Conservation Fund.
Why would it be through the conservation fund instead of administration fund? We out of money or?
Administration fund through the CPC, you mean, or
Right.
what administration
Yeah.
fund?
Yep, our CPA, isn't that normally what we use?
Yep. To answer your question, yes and no. The CPA admin fund can only be used directly for the business of the CPC, and unless this was already an application
Oh, right, okay.
before the CPC, they can't just agree to use it. We've been guided to be more. The CPC has been guided to be more succinct in how the administration fund is used. And secondly, all of the admin fund remaining reserves were committed to the 432 Whitney appraisal and the legal fees, which are expected to be substantial. However, the conservation fund has monies in it that they have a remaining balance of about 60,000, even if the town voted to approve 664,000 into the 432 Whitney purchase. The 60,000 was not put in there by CPA vote. It was old money and accumulated interest and things like that. So they should be able to afford an appraisal if it were in the 3, 4, 5,000 range. And so, that would be the resource, as Vinny says.
Okay, all right, thanks for explaining.
I think it makes sense, particularly if we already know potentially we could get $200,000 back. Because going back into that fund from the 432 purchase potentially, depending on what the appraisal comes back for that other land. So that might be another way to look at this as well. Just in thinking out loud, I know it's, time is not great, to Ashley's point a little bit, but if we're if we're looking for ways for money to be reimbursed and looking for other grants that are out there, then in my opinion, this is exactly why this particular property has been targeted by this committee, right? So I think it makes total sense to at least take a look and you know, and support John with the letter, you know, to get that appraisal moving forward with respect to that.
Very good. Well, that's certainly easy to do, and I guess it would be incumbent on Vinny or a member or more of Open Space could appear perhaps at the Concom meeting, describing the property and making a case for the need for the appraisal, while at the same time maintaining the confidentiality of the situation.
Yeah, I can take care of the presentation, and I'm pretty sure Dan Clark will be there. I can bring him up to date
yeah.
on it. So I think we could both cover it, unless you're excited to attend another Zoom meeting.
I am not. But
I don't think so.
Thanks, Vinny.
is
And
Dan the
that's on
chairman?
April 8th. No,
You want-
Dan, Greg Young is the chair.
Greg is still the chair. Okay,
Yes.
good. Did you say April 8th? Okay.
Yes. 6 o'clock.
Excellent. Okay, I can draft up a quick email and work with you to see if you think it covers it, Vinny.
Yes, absolutely. That's great. Thank you.
You got it. Okay, we've been kicking the outreach mailings down the road for several meetings now. And are we in a place to get moving with what we would call a new round of mailings? You had sent as meeting materials in the past several of our letter versions, which I happen to print in front of me. One
Yes.
letter in particular, yeah, and just quickly, one letter in particular that, you know, way back in the fall, Brian offered to write to a particular owner that he was a little familiar with, and we spoke about, that has a parcel that abuts some existing trail and conservation land. And during one of those meetings, I offered to give Brian some feedback, and I subsequently remembered to do that a couple months after that. The letter was fine for the most part. I think I added a couple of commas, but I think you know, if everyone else hasn't seen it again, maybe we need to share it and then just kind of say, yep, go for it. I'm trying to be confidential for the particular property, but maybe we need to email it around freshly again. Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, that's one of the process things I wasn't sure of. Do we discuss those letters here in front of us, or do we email them amongst the members for review and then we talk about them again?
Well, in past years, we had several versions of the letter, and Vinny had gone back and gotten them. This one you targeted a little bit more because we knew, excuse me, a little more about the owner and their land, and you know its impact on the existing trail that goes through their property and so on. So that one was a little bit more specific, not in a grand way, but just a little bit more. Where the others were somewhat general, referenced the benefits, referenced that the Open Space Committee in the town were actively pursuing. There was, you know, a link to the Legacy Your Land, Your Land, Your Legacy booklet you know, and so those things we had shared by prior email just to get anybody's input for any editing of it. And then our goal was to agree on those lines in the list that should receive the letter. Or which letters, like there was a, you know, Vinnie's color coded the spreadsheet. I got a printed copy in front of me. And he had, for instance, you know, in yellow was all protection options letter. And most of the properties are highlighted yellow. Blue was a lot specific letter, which would apply to the one that I'm referring to Brian. So you know, how prepared are people to talk about this now, or should we make it our number one item on the next meeting? I'm open to suggestion.
I think our next meeting is supposed to be in May, if I'm not mistaken. Right? So I would vote now to discuss what we want to do with the specific letters, so that we're not waiting, you know, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, and getting either something out in the mail, or the discussion point comes up, you know, during, you know, everybody's busy time when it could be the first week in June, because I think Memorial Day falls on one of our meeting days. So
Yes,
it's either got to be the next week into June, or, you know, or the next agreed upon date, right? So, you know, as much as, you know, I'd rather take the extra 15-20 minutes of discussion now and talk about whether we're going to do specific letters, or we're going to categorize these and maybe approve 3 different types of letters, whether it's lot specific or protection or those types of things. Obviously, Brian did a really good job of using the spot, you know, the lot specific letter, but we may have properties here now that don't really fall into that category, where we do want to send a general letter that the commission is still interested in those. The committee's still interested in engaging in some talks with those folks. So that's just my personal opinion, but because I would hate for it to leak into June, and then we have a discussion point, and now we're 3 months behind again, and we're playing catch up again. Who knows what our meetings are going to be like in the summertime as well. So just in an interest of time.
thanks, Paul. I tend to agree with you. I have a proposition, which is Vinnie shared probably 2 meetings ago copies of 3 such letter versions that I think we had crafted probably even before Vinnie's time on in Northborough. One of the 3, I'm looking at it now. I like it because it's 1 page. It has 3 main paragraphs plus a short closing 4th paragraph. The 3rd paragraph specifically references the booklet, Your Land, Your Legacy, which is a really, really good publication that we've talked about before. You know, it gives them a link to it where if they receive a written letter, they'd have to type it in, but nonetheless, they'd be able to track it down. And I like that as a proposal to use for the so-called all options letter.
Was that the 1-pager or the 2-pager?
The 1-pager. There's 3 letters.
Yep.
One of them is the one I mentioned. The second letter is also a 1-pager, but it does not have the reference to the link for the publication, Your Land, Your Legacy. And the 3rd letter is 2 pages, quite a bit longer. And because it's so long, I like the shorter one. just myself personally. And if there's, anyone else that had access to the letters, or Vinny gonna pop it up? Not perfect.
I'm trying. I think, yes, this is the one, I think, right? If I can
Yes, it
stop
is.
moving.
Yeah, I think you should just move forward with sending that out. That's the more generic one. I think that's great. I think we've got enough on our plate right now that we're like, we need to send some more pointed letters. In the future, we can do it, but I think this is good to just keep touch with some of the landowners that, are on the list and see what happens, and I think it's perfect.
Okay.
I would agree.
Great.
And we send them with John's signature, or do people, if you could go through the spreadsheet and see if there are some that you might be the person to who's had contact with them in the past, just let me know when I can sign or have your name as the signature, and kind of make it a little bit more from someone they've already talked to, as opposed to from myself or just John.
Actually, could you also change it just to chair at the end?
Yes, I usually do that. I'm sorry, I missed that one.
That's good.
I like being chairman, Leslie.
I'm sure you do.
Oh, well.
All right.
Um,
Okay.
great. Well, so we have consensus on that idea?
Yeah,
Yes,
and on that same note, that Paul noted in terms of timing with the appraisal thing for the landowners that Vinny and I talked with this week. Do we need anything further, is the consensus that we had here a little while ago, is that enough to go forward and get the appraisal done without having to come back?
I think so, because the money's coming from the Conservation Commission. As long as they're okay with doing it, they can initiate an appraisal
Okay,
at any time.
great. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
I mean, toward that end, Ashley, we could consider putting an April meeting on, on the calendar, and a meeting if necessary, or updating if you felt like the committee needed to be kept apprised. But if the process were to work out and Concom agreed, then we're going to wait a few weeks for an appraisal anyway, right?
I would
But-
say at least a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least a month. So I think May is fine, as long as it's moving forward. I think that'll be good. And
Good.
hopefully we have an appraisal to look at in May.
Yeah.
That would be
And
awesome.
then I guess I'll just put out to the committee members that are present. Is everyone fine with Ashley continuing to represent our interest? Should there be follow-up, and I'm sure there will be by phone or by email. You could keep the owners apprised of, hey, this is what we're doing. Next step is the Concom. We hope to get approval, and if we do, I'll let you know, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
yes, 100%.
Good. Thanks, Ashley, for stepping in again.
No problem.
Not like you're not busy, but I appreciate it.
Speaking of, I'm gonna have to cut out in a minute to put my kids to bed.
Fair enough. Feel free. We will,
Do you want to get
We
the
can
next
carry
meeting
on.
before she leaves? Try to set a date for the next meetings?
yeah, so the fourth Monday is Memorial Day. What about the Monday before? How does that work? Is it available? The people, May 20?
That works for me.
It's got to be a conflict somewhere,
That's
but
the trails.
It's Trails Committee night.
oh, it is, okay. That's right, they're always the third Monday. What about the second Monday in May? Is that,
Nope, that's conservation.
okay? I knew there was a reason why this didn't work.
What about the 28th? Are people back from vacation then?
It's okay with me.
Well, if we're doing a Tuesday, would we look at Tuesday the 21st rather than Monday the 20th? I don't remember why we don't move to. What if the Monday doesn't work should we progress down the week versus progressing to the next week?
If we progress to June, I'm out the first Monday, so I couldn't do it, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. And if we go
Didn't
to a two,
didn't you just ask about May 21st, Brian?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Ashley had suggested Tuesday, the 28th. I guess, I'm
Or-
sorry,
or the
doesn't
21st.
matter. 21,
Either
21st,
way,
21st or
yeah.
28th,
yeah, either one of those. They work.
Tuesday nights, unless Tuesday nights are bad for everyone.
The 21st is better for me than the 28th, but I probably could make the 28th work.
okay,
20,
does it
21st
conflict?
works.
Oh, no, I
Okay.
can't. Sorry, I can't. My mom's birthday is the next day. I'm going to Pittsburgh on the 28th. So I can only do the 21st.
21st.
That's what you said already, right?
Mm-hmm. 21st is
May-
good.
Tuesday, May 21. Let's give it a try.
Hold on.
That way. Get some, yeah. I was gonna say.
Tuesday, the 21st, there is a planning board meeting and a planning board meeting on the meetings calendars for the town. So Anthony is planning board rep, correct?
Yeah, he hasn't come back to the fold
Right.
yet, so
Yes.
the Mondays tend to preclude Lisa Maselli, who is our select board rep, sometimes, so we could it potentially opens up her availability, if not Anthony's. Let's
Okay.
be realistic. It's the other 7 or 8 of us that tend to attend the meeting. So
Yes. Yeah. So the 21st, at what time? Or
let's give it
I
a try.
heard
7
they don't like
o'clock?
6, so 7 o'clock.
All due respect, I hope the Celtics are still playing in May.
Yes, I do too.
'Cause
You're
that means
to
I'm
be
working
excused.
or traveling with them. So I hope
Yeah,
not to be there, but it doesn't really matter. I mean,
Okay.
I'll make it work if as long as we're not in Boston or I'm traveling with them.
Appreciate that. They better be still playing.
I agree.
But either way, we hope that you're free. Let's give it a try. At least put it on the calendar.
Yep.
So Ashley's got to go. That's fine. In the meantime,
I don't know if it's just me, but I couldn't
we
understand it. Your voice just got all garbled.
kind of approved or had consent. Can you hear me now?
It's
am I
better
on?
now. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were all
Okay.
garbled.
Sorry. Less garbled. I was saying, I think we had consensus on the letter that Vinny had on the screen to send to the entire sheet, excepting the one that I was talking about in the beginning with Brian. And I wonder,
My only opinion on that is that it's a well-known, that property is pretty well known. He's pretty well known. If the committee decides we want to go, with the blanket generic letter for everyone, that's totally fine. But I think that a little bit of a personal touch with that particular property owner might come across better than a generic letter. But that's only my opinion.
I'm sorry, Miss, which one is this? Or is this another unnamed?
Well, I don't really think it's a secret. This is adjacent to Edmund Hill. We had to close part of Edmund Hill when this property was purchased.
right.
Tried to open a business in town. It didn't happen.
Okay.
My goal with the letter that I drafted was that convince him that the town wants to help him or be friendly or do work with him if we can. And we're not and nothing's going on, right? There's no risk, nothing's up for
Right.
sale. It's just a remind him that the opportunity is out there if he wanted to think about it. That's all.
And I would say them. It's a couple. It's not
Them.
just
I'm sorry.
him.
Yes.
It's not just her.
Yes.
I mean, no, it's not just him. Sorry.
Correct.
Brian,
Yeah, I agree that a more personal touch would make sense.
I'm going to display it with their names removed. And if you give me just a minute. pull it up and
I do agree with Brian on some of these, looking at the spreadsheet, we may have personal relationships with. And there might be some that personal touch goes a little further than others, at least the consideration anyway, and not go in the trash can or recycle bin.
yeah, and I think some personal follow-ups can take place as well, but you're right. I think there's, and we could come back and look at that. There's a few on the list where, we've probably had outreach in the past and, one of which was a parcel not too far from where you live, Leslie, and you and Ashley were active for, what was that, 3-4 years ago?
Yeah, it was pre-COVID, so probably 5 years ago.
Yeah. So, okay,
The system says you can share. There should be a green button at the bottom in the middle.
okay,
I just want
thanks.
to make
I'm
sure I have the
gonna,
most recent spreadsheet. I'm not finding it.
It was last sent in September, Leslie. I don't think it's been updated by us at a meeting
Yeah, I'm
since.
not, the one that I have is earlier than that. Vinny, I'm sorry, would you be able to send it
can-
again?
Yeah, I can give that a go. Yeah.
Thank you. Thought I had it, but
The last one I have is from November 21st. That was
Yeah,
attached
that sounds,
to
yeah.
Maybe you're right.
November 21st at 11:56 a.m.
Do you have that handy that you could just forward to her?
I can. I'll send
Thank
her the whole kit and caboodle here.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
you have my email address, Andy?
So,
I have it.
Great, thanks, Paul.
Mhm.
back to me, I am about to, holy crap, I got a lot of things open here. Let's see if. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, so this is the letter with just the name removed. Actually, it's the slight edit that I sent to Brian. I don't know, I took out the words, the purchase or in the first part, second sentence, we are interested in working with you to explore the possibilities for permanent protection of some of this land as open space. I was just suggesting taking out the words, the purchase or.
Yeah, your suggested edits are fine. That's, yeah.
And then you make, reference to what it abuts in the Edmund Hill. And, it's pretty simple and to the point and directs them to, to Vinny, myself, yourself. And just kind of, I thought it was fine as an introduction where you thought, Brian, there might be a point in time you'll be able to have a conversation. This might be a door opener.
Yeah, I still think that. I mean, I think that, there's no, as best I know, the property there's no like activity on it. I don't believe well, I have no idea if it's anyone's considering, putting it up for sale. I've no real insight into that.
Neither
It
do
just
we.
exists. It exists there.
Sure. Yeah, and from the Open Space Committee's perspective, prior to the current owner buying it, there had been a verbal offer that the previous owner was going to consider selling the backland to the town. And when the land purchase went through, that didn't take place. So kind of revisiting the possibility again with the new owner.
I think it looks great. I just want to demote you from chairman to chair and Brian to vice chair.
Fair enough.
Title is shrinking.
Yep. We could make a chairperson and then it would be longer if
Oh, no, I hate that.
I
Sorry.
do too, but you're complaining about?
Fine, we'll go with chair. Okay, all kidding aside, so this looks good to proceed with that one. And maybe just email the full copy back to Vinny.
Sure. So
Yes.
I'll make the edits and then send it back to Vinny.
Yep,
Thank you.
I can mail it off for you.
Will do.
Did this get
And,
sent in November?
No, it was drafted in.
Oh, it's just a
back in
draft, okay.
November. Yep.
All right, was good. Okay, good.
I'm going to stop sharing. Is that good? Okay. Okay, so we've accomplished that one's going out, and we've accomplished that the agreed upon other letter is going to everyone else.
All the yellows, or do you want the yellows and the blues that,
Oh, I think there's a bunch more blues than I remembered.
there's probably half a dozen, I think.
Why don't we just-
Those are lot specific for those that are wondering, blue.
Yep.
I think, without
there's
mentioning a property in there, in the downtown development stuff, I think that the blues make sense. This is a property in there on that spreadsheet.
Yep, it's you're correct.
I just want to look like we're taking some proactive action with regard to if that comes back up around downtown. That we're also looking to connect.
Yeah. What are the
Park.
how about the purple ones? What category is that? Backland,
Backland.
CR, or trails letter? Would still apply. Yellows, we agree that the purple and the yellow could get the same letter. Whereas the blue, you point out a couple of specifics where we should maybe revisit drafting something more specific, or first checking with town staff and other committees, like you say, couple there in particular relate to downtown development efforts. So maybe we don't do the blues with the mailing. How does that sound?
It's still enough to do.
Yeah, I agree with that, John. Because I do think that involving those other committees to know that we've also are targeting those. And have they had conversations? Have they not? Have they sent any letters? Have they not? Asking a few, committee members, and maybe Vin, you can help us here where some of those properties relate to downtown and connecting us to the right people. But I do think we have plenty of yellows for sure. And purple looks like it's all one street.
Yeah, that's a lot of backland stuff. So there's no reason why, I see the 1, 2, 3, the sixth purple one is an owner that had already, or maybe it's the one above it. I believe they're in the same family. They had already inquired to the town in some recent years because the town did acquire one of the abutting properties back in
Right.
2000 or 2019 or something like that. Maybe it was a little after. So I think that the general letter for the yellow and the purple is fine. And the blues, a few of these have come up, and Lori Connors as the town planner and also the liaison to the master plan implementation committee has commented that we should wait and target those a little differently.
I can
So,
check with her.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So we'll move forward with the yellow and the purple and the gray, because one of the grays we just talked about, and there's Oh, well, another gray is 432 Whitney. So they don't need to get one. And we have two other grays that were on my page one of the spreadsheet that I'm looking at. One on Brigham Street, one on Green Street. I don't know why those couldn't get the regular letter unless somebody knows something else.
No, we can always send it out. I mean, worst case is it just gets filed in the circular file.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think then it makes sense for those Brigham Street properties. If the 11 of 2017 was the last contact.
Yep.
That's quite a bit of years in between.
Right. Okay, so we got a plan. Yellow, purple, and the two grays. Eliminating 432 Whitney would get the general letter, and the one gray that we spoke about just a minute ago would get the more specific letter that Brian will send to Vinny. All good?
And Vinny
Looks good.
will connect on the Blues lot specifics with regards to the downtown, excuse me, committees and master plan.
Yep, fair enough.
Yep.
We'll.
I'll check with Laurie.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
The planning director to work on that. And if anyone knows that they want to sign any of them, send me an email and I will just change the signature on that.
Thank you.
So if I, as chair, am signing, I can probably get you like an electronic digital image to post in the letter if you want, or I can just do it by hand. I got no problem if you think that's important.
I might have your electronic one already, but I will send an email and let you know. I
Okay.
actually have a couple of other things going in the next week or so, so I think we have time to prep for this.
Good. Very well. Any more information on this agenda item for the landowner outreach? Assuming we're good. Is there any other new business or anything that anyone has? Any other comments?
When I was searching around for the spreadsheet, I found an old email. I can't believe it's been a year about the trail marker for the Rostron property. Did anything, the last thing I have on it is from January 27th of 23, where we were sending the card. And then Vinny said, I still haven't heard about the plaque. Seemed like a simple question. Brian's don't ask practice seems to be the right one around here. Did anything come of that, or?
That I'm gonna have to apologize. That totally fell off of my list of things. I think it's still a worthwhile thing to do, so I'm gonna re-add it to my list, and I'll rotate that over to my other committee.
Great, thank you. Did the
Yeah.
card go to them that way back when? Great, okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks.
Excellent. Okay, hearing nothing else. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Paul.
Can you
Please
second
roll call.
before?
That was close enough.
Was a photo finish there.
All right, all in favor of adjourning, Brian,
Yes.
Paul, Cacciatore,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yeah, can I think about it? Yes.
Paul Tagliaferri,
Yes.
and John, yes. Thank you all. Good meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thanks.
Nice.
Thank you very much.